Hey there, everybody. I couldn't wait to, when I did my taping on Monday about the primaries yesterday, I was like, can't wait to get on here today and see what's up. Sure enough, all thanks to Spirit, when I did my reading Monday, especially, most eyes, I know all the races are important, but a lot of eyes clearly were on the Michigan race between Abdul Al Sayed and Haley Stevens, and it came out the cards. If you saw it Monday, the cards came out a little right. And so I called it through Spirit's help, not about me. I called it for Saeed, but we could see that it was going to be super super close. So here's where I want to go today with this. And, we understand that overall, among the primary races yesterday, that it was a little bit of a mixed bag. And we're seeing while Saeed's victory, woohoo, narrow though it was, but now it is what it is, right? He's going to have to go up. He is going to be going up against Mike Rogers. So I want to start out today by looking at the prospects of Abdul Al Sayed against Mike Rogers. And if, in fact, a lot of the holdouts, the Haley Stevens holdouts, will cross over, or whether they're going to sit and pout and whine and, and bite their nails. So what Spirit said as I was sitting down, making my notes and stuff today is we keep hearing all this stuff in the Democratic Party about big tent politics, right? So hey, is the tent going to stretch? Is the big tent going to be big enough to fit everybody in? Because clearly the signal has been sent again that the progressive movement and Democrats really being very concerned, younger voters being concerned about affordability, about health care, all the things. And then you get these pundits. I was watching a lot of news yesterday. Maybe a lot of you were as well. And you get all these, these pundits that are coming out and saying, well, the issue is that the progressive wing of the party, of the Democratic Party, is going to have to get a grip on focusing so much on Gaza and Israel, and really bring it home to making U.S. issues sort of the America first of the Democratic Party. So I want to take a look at that and see if, in fact, what we're looking at is in this shift, clearly that voters are showing that they want, if we are going to see sort of this argument going into November for an America first approach, but from a left wing perspective. Want to take a look at that. So first things first. And thank you for being here always. If you just landed on the channel, I'm Afefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond. I'm a former newspaper journalist, clearly a tarot reader, and I'm also an initiated priestess. Got my Oh Yeah shirt on today. Initiated priestess in both Wiccan and West African traditions. So kind of mix it up here and try to give you some good content. All right, y'all, let's go in. Spirit, will there be a coming together of moderates and progressives within the Democratic Party? Will the big tent stretch? I've got the Four of Pentacles. Some folks are going to want to dig in. We're right. We've been doing it this way. It's that establishment thing, man. Like, get over it. Because there's a question around money. The Democratic Party overall knows that, and we've been hearing, but look what happened with that. What was it? 30, 40, 50 million dollars that was poured into Haley Stevens, and look what happened. But that's the issue. They're still focused on money. The Hermit. Sort of a self-assessment. I like that this came. The Hermit is a card of, okay, wait a minute. Maybe we got to look at this a little and check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. Democratic establishment. Seven of Pentacles, assessment. I love it. Spirit speaking very clearly. So yes, there is going to be a lot of, before we hear, before we see the shift clearly, before you hear someone like a Hakeem Jeffries come out and endorse Saeed, which, by the way, while we're here, Will we see Hakeem Jeffries and others like him now come out and support candidates like El Said? Death. They're going to hold fast. Let's park that over there for a minute. He's afraid of him. Hakeem Jeffries is very afraid of this new class of, I don't even know if I want to say new class, but this growing contingent of the Democratic Party, and the extent to which there will be those elected to office in Congress outside of what's happening in the states. But those, he really is nervous. Hakeem is very, very nervous. Spirit, will the party stretch? Will the Democratic establishment understand and stretch the star? Woo! Glad to see it. They have no choice, really. This ain't going to be voluntary. But they want those votes. And because at the end of the day, they want to defeat the Republicans in November. They want the House. And so the star is the, ruled by Aquarius, is by the people, for the people, among the people, doing things a different way, but also dragging their feet doing it. 7 of Pentacles. So there's not, essentially what I'm getting here, you all, is like, there's not this, okay, we hear you, we hear you folks. And so let us get on board. It's going to be dragging their feet and trying to appear that they are still in charge, because they want that money, right? They want to keep that moderate voter, that independent voter, that corporate money coming in at the same time that they recognize they're going to need the votes of the voters, and especially the young voters who are turning out for progressive candidates. Will the Big Tent stretch, Spirit? Last card. Are we going to see a coming together? Platforms coming together, Ace of Swords. I love when that happens. Yes. And it comes in swords. Decisions made, people being rational, platforms and campaign platforms being put out there that embrace everyone. Now, I'm also getting this pertains to Abdul and other candidates like him, other progressive candidates like him heading into the November races. They too realize that they've got to bring more people under the tent to get it over the finish line. Will moderates and independent voters go left? All the stakes being what they are, will they go left? Page of Cups. It's positive. And the Moon. Some serious soul searching. Some serious, because there's also here indicated the worries of the possibility of not following this through. The Republican Party staying in charge, staying in control. That's what that Moon is. And the Page of Wands. And the 8 of Wands. This is very much going to, I do see the voters swinging, but I also see an increased push and momentum to bring in more, talking about the Big Tent, bring in more younger voters and keeping them engaged. That's going to be a huge factor in getting some of these progressive candidates, not just Al Sayed, but others across the nation who are running in what are going to be really tight competitive races, especially with the money situation, that Pentacles we saw, and the establishment Dems, the DNC being in, underwater in a lot of financial respects. So there's that weighed against the momentum. There's money and momentum, and the two are going to have to meet under that Big Tent. But we did get the 8 of Wands, and that feels like yes, and it feels like it's going to happen quickly. Hey, November's going to be here by the time we blink, right? So this is looking good, you all. Jeffries and them. Jeffries is very afraid, and we'll look at him more, as we get down the road. One of the things that I wanted to look at as well with this is extending this to the candidates who we know are on the upswing for 2028, specifically AOC and Pete Buttigieg is what Spirit led me to today. Now, AOC, along with Bernie Sanders, we know they've been on it, going around the country doing, months ago doing the rallies for the progressive movement, and we see that, to the extent, the polls work our nerves, but they are what they are, right? But we see, AOC's, whoa, she's coming. Now she was all in and has been all in on progressive candidates. Pete Buttigieg has been interesting. He did not, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, I looked for it. Pete Buttigieg from Michigan, in Michigan, did not endorse Abdul El-Sayed, right? Or Sayed. Did not. Are we going to see Pete Buttigieg and others now come out with a more full-throttled endorsement and backing of and reshaping their take to be more progressive, to be willing to go left? The devil. Yeah, they ain't gonna do it willingly. That's that attachment, right? And sometimes an attachment to the whole narrative that we're constantly being fed and being shoved down our throats, that here's how politics works. And voters are saying, damn the way politics works. Here's what we want in government leadership. So that's where, and not just Pete Buttigieg, but those of his ilk, those who have the John Ossoffs, those who have the Tallaricos, those who have a lot of momentum behind them, but they're teetering, they're walking that fine line. I'm still looking at Pete Buttigieg, Seven of Swords. He's conflicted about this, you all. As talented and I'm a fan. Let me just say that out my mouth. I'm a fan of Buttigieg, but he's conflicted. He sees the risks, or he feels that there are risks. And the Nine of Pentacles, money again. The ability to fundraise, the ability to launch what no doubt will be, we're looking at presidential campaigns now, right? What no doubt will be extremely costly. So he's gonna hedge his bets for right now. AOC, on the other hand, Spirit, is this proof positive for her? Is this going to add more to her shine and potential as a presidential candidate? Four of Swords, Four of Pentacles, and the Four of... Ooh, wait a minute. 4. Four of Swords, Four of Pentacles, and Four of Wands. Now, fours are foundational. She's building a new paradigm. Again, more so. Like that's not breaking news, right? But she believes in the new paradigm, you all. She believes that, from the beginning of her career and others like her, this reliance on grassroots funding. Look at what just happened with Abdul El-Sayed, right? In Michigan, right? What was it? 12-1, the funding, the money. So AOC is going to hold tight to this. But that Four of Swords is getting something really strategic in place so that she can build and be seen as the candidate that the party can get behind, that voters can get behind, that can win against $1 trillion if necessary, right? Win. Four of Wands, building a coalition, and the Four of Pentacles is building that foundation. She's not going to switch up. She's not going to be, in any sense of the word, anywhere near someone like a John Fetterman, right? Where you expect one thing out of them and suddenly it's like, who are you anymore? That is not going to happen with AOC. I think Pete Buttigieg, on the other hand, it's not that he won't, but he's going to have a little more difficult time trying to figure out how to switch gears. All right. And death. Yeah, because it's gonna require some deeper transformational stuff in him. He's more of a traditionalist in that way, you know. He AOC, for comparison's sake, AOC was always that fiery grassroots progressive. So where she's going is more in keeping with the identity that she's already always had, even as she matures into a solid, you know, national and potentially global political force. Buttigieg got brought in under a different umbrella. And while he's done a great job of using his voice, two of wands, exactly, focused forward, I think he'll end the star. I think Buttigieg will find a way to come along, but his struggle to do so is just going to be a little more difficult, and we won't hear from him. You know, AOC is going to be taking some victory laps, right? AOC and Bernie and those, you know, Ayanna Pressley showed up, like. There's going to be they're going to be taking some victory laps and like, yes, and more. Yes, Pete is going to, and those like him are going to have to say, okay, we're not, you know, never in our lives did we intend to be seen as establishment folk. But at the same time, this is a little new to us and we got to figure out how to navigate it. Big tent. You got to figure out how to, look, is the tent made of nylon? Is like, really, right? Is the tent, you know, we're going to pick up the stakes of the tent and stretch them out a little further and put them back in the sand? What, right? Because that's what's going to have to happen. And if we're going to make this, you know, keep this going. All right, y'all. The second thing I wanted to look at briefly for you all today is JD comes out today with a opinion piece in the Washington Post. What is this thing? We heard about this some months ago. About 4 months ago, JD was charged with heading up this task force to eliminate fraud, right? Remember, I talked about that a little bit. So he's starting to pump that up. Why? Because we already heard the announcement from this administration that they're going to pull mostly support. I don't know if it's zero funding or zero subsidies, but Medicare Part D, what allows people on Medicare to get reduced prescription prices, right? Interesting move ahead of the midterms, but okay. So, and I think that would take effect in 2027. So like, who can afford their prescriptions anymore, right? So here comes JD with this opinion piece today in the Washington Post saying, well, you know, Trump has done an amazing job. We all know that there is a lot of fraud out there, and he's calling on Congress to act on this because there's this, I wrote it down, exploitation of the generosity of Americans. Exploitation. We got to stop this exploitation of the generosity of Americans because there are so many dollars being stolen by criminals. Here we go. That same old stuff. All right. Are they getting ready to really, like, for real? Is the next step, because they drained all the resources that they can, right? Starting with, you know, last year, they've made so much money and fed off of every source of federal funding you can name, attacked science, attacked cultural institutions, attacked the environmental institutions, like gimme all of that money back. Now we're at the point that they said they never go, which was to take money from seniors and others, right? Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, Spirit. Is JD teeing up through this fraud situation? Are they getting ready to snatch back funding for these federal programs? Medicaid, Medicare, the Wheel of Fortune. That's what's on the table, y'all. And the magician, I'm not going to ignore it. That's what's on the table. That is literally what's on the table. The absolute worst of the worst. Now, Spirit will, especially in red states, I read an article, I can't remember where it was, you all, I apologize for that. I read an article a few days ago and maybe American Prospect. I can't remember, but there were interviews being done with people in rural red areas who are at the point they're saying of like donating blood plasma just to try and get gas. Right? Knew it was coming. Spirit, will the reality of this funding being pulled, Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, all of the social services, will this get voters off their butts? Ten of Pentacles. Yes. Well, okay. Thank you, Spirit. I was pausing and trying to figure out what that was. It is the intention to take the money away from the people for these services, y'all. Okay, literally, they want to take it, or at the very least, reduce it. Nine of Wands to push to reduce it to unrealizable levels, like who gets it, who doesn't, how does the government disperse the money. A lot of people who are on these programs, it's about automatic deposits that are, where their money or their cards or whatever are refueled. So it's taking that. And the Seven of Wands, that is what's happening here. And the Seven of Cups, trying to figure out, that's the plan. We're going to claim it's fraud. We're going to claim that all this money been going to criminals. And the Seven of Cups is, but we want to be a little slick about it. We got to figure out, who do we take it from? Spirit, is the plan to take it from blue states? Is JD's plan and company to target blue states? Five of Swords, the Hermit, and the Ace of Wands. That's the plan. Because what they want to do, but they haven't figured out how to again, Slick. He wrote this opinion piece saying, we know that there's all of this fraud out there. The fraud question is what gets the MAGA base riled up, even against their own interests, right? So there's the Hermit. Gotta figure out and do a little detailed analysis on how we're going to sell this message to them. And the Ace of Wands, targeting blue states primarily because, hey, then our folks aren't mad about that. Our folks in deep red Arkansas or Idaho, they're not going to worry about what we're doing in Minnesota or New York or California, especially. So we have the is that an Eight of Wands? Eight of Wands. Yes, that's the messaging. And they're being told to speed it up. That's why JD wrote that piece. This is a card of swiftness, quick things happening. That's why JD did this piece in the Washington Post now. And all of this is coming now ahead of the midterms, which seems like self-defeating, right? But that's why he's doing it, because he wants to, it's this, we're gonna make our people think that ultimately our eyes are still focused on the other, them, the criminals, the black folks, the immigrants that are taking your benefits. And that's the messaging that they're going to put out in hopes that they can get their people to come out. And there's the High Priestess. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. This is so underhanded, because this is more propaganda that they're going to, just like they did with America First, right? America First, prices going down day one, never happened, but you still got MAGA folk that are out there selling blood and still supporting this regime. And that's what JD's after. But he's gonna try and sell it by saying, we'll go after the places that you're not gonna care about. I don't think that's gonna land, y'all. I don't think that's gonna land. I think people are gonna see that coming so fast. Spirit, will there be something to counter that? Is this platform by JD going to backfire on him? I just heard spectacularly. Spectacularly, this will backfire on him. We have the Eight of Cups, people turning their back on him. People are like, nope. And you know, part of the hypocrisy, and he does this, JD, for entertainment purposes only. He starts this article, this opinion piece out in the Washington Post by, of course, relating once again to his poor, impoverished background. So I relate to American people who rely on these services because my mother and I, too, had to rely on these services. But he even says at one point, it's about protecting our children, that our children may lose services. Who's our? It's a piece of work, man. Two of Wands. Yeah. This is going to backfire. And the Fool. This is going to backfire on him. He's going to give it a shot because he's trying to model himself. On the one hand, cozy up to, I'm a Trump loyalist. You know that you know what I'm going to do. You know I'm going to run for office. And so I'm taking the risk to do this, but he's going to be the fool. Sometimes the fool works out and the journey is worth it, and sometimes it's foolish. And then there's the sun. And if I'm not mistaken, he's a Leo, which is ruled by the sun. So yeah, he's trying to position himself and establish himself as a Trump loyalist to try and begin to, shine up his resume for what he's going to do down the road. Two of Wands focused forward, but Eight of Cups. Folks ain't buying it. All right? Or at least enough folks won't buy it so that that's not going to play. And I think what he does in this article is call on Congress to enact these restrictions to get on board with this fraud and pull back funding, right? That's not going to happen. And all the more reason why we're going to see what happens. House is still feeling very, very strong. Senate, we're going to see what happens with that. And if that happens, both of them, it's going to be toast. At that point, we're going to see Mike Johnson try to pull a fast one and refuse to swear in the people who win. But we'll cross that, as the old folks used to say, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. All right, y'all. Chin up. And our shoulders back. Remember, please, if you haven't heard about this already or have not registered or didn't know, I'm doing a workshop live on Zoom, 5 o'clock Eastern this Saturday, 8/8. The Lionsgate Portal, how to quantum leap into your highest self. Spirit has had me up in the middle of the night taking notes on my phone for things that I want to cover with this. I'm so excited because just as we're talking about all these changes politically, the political is spiritual. The spiritual is political. We live our lives in the midst of all of it, right? So just as we're seeing so much of this, sort of the political tectonic plates, as one reporter put it, shifting, so too are some of our spiritual practices. It's not that we're walking away from anything, our typical manifestation and how we're living, how we're moving spiritually, but we are being, quantum reality and quantum leaping. I cannot wait to talk to you all about it. So I'll put a link to my website. The only thing is, please remember, my website is like a little wonky. When you go to my website, trulytouchedbytarot.com, you hit book online, and that's where you'll see the workshop. When you click on the workshop, you have to click the calendar date of 8/8 in order to register. All right, so it's just one little extra step. trulytouchedbytarot.com. Go to book online on the menu. You'll see the workshop. Click that, and then click 8/8 on that, and you'll see a little pop-up calendar. Click on 8/8, and then you can register. And it will be recorded if you can't attend live. All right, so you'll get the recording. But this one, y'all, I'm putting my heart and soul into this one. Oh, I love to teach in general, but this one's definitely going to be special because the timing is so special. All right, chin up, shoulders back. Talking about Leo energy, Leo the lion ruling the heart. Keep coming from your heart, please. We got this. Sky above us, always, and the earth beneath us, holding us steady. I'll talk to you a little bit later. Bye.